Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to episode number 51 of Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer. Hello, Erica Campbell over there. I think you're muted. I can't hear you.
All right, take two. Hi, Tim.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. It's TGIT. Tuesday is my favorite day of the week. I am so excited for this show, Tim.
I'm excited also. And welcome, everyone. We're so excited for this show. And this show, Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer, was created as a safe space where cancer patients, survivors, and supporters come together to share their stories and connect, as well as find resources that provide healing, hope, and resilience. My name is Tim Sohn, a 15-year, almost 16-year cancer survivor. Next month, it'll be 16 years. Host of Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer and a live streaming producer and coach for nonprofits, businesses, and entrepreneurs who make a positive impact in the world. Over to you, Erica Campbell.
All right, thanks, Tim. I am Erica Campbell. I am myself a 4-year breast cancer survivor. My other perspectives on cancer include I am a cancer leader. I lead a nonprofit called the Pinky Swear Foundation. I'm also a cancer volunteer. I have been volunteering with children battling cancer at a summer camp for nearly 20 years. And finally, I am a cancer orphan after losing my mom to a long and arduous battle against breast cancer nearly 20 years ago. So the best part, thanks, Tim. I actually had a really powerful experience. I felt my mom the other day, Tim. Sometimes she comes and visits me. And I just want to say thank you to this community because she loves it. I love it. I want to know, where are you coming to us from? So let us know in the chat. Where are you from and what is your connection to cancer? If you're new here, one of the most important things about our show is the community that we are creating. That is the most powerful tool we have as humans, is connection. So reach out to someone on this chat and say hello, introduce yourself, and let's get going. Tim, over to you.
Thank you, Erica. Before we bring on our guest, and I'm super excited for our guest this week, I just want to mention that this weekend is the first ever in-person Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer event here, well, about 45 minutes from me in Honesdale, Pennsylvania. The event goes from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time. If you would like to join us, there are still a few seats available. So if you go to perspectivesoncancer.com, you can sign up. And I want to say thank you to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, our partner for the event, as well as all of the 25 plus amazing sponsors, including the Pinky Swear Foundation, of which you are the executive director of. So thank you, Pinky Swear Foundation, and Erica.
You are welcome, Tim. I think this is going to be a fantastic event, and Pinky Swear Foundation is very happy to sponsor.
I am super, super excited for the event.
Awesome.
So Erica, yes.
I can see everyone blowing up the chat. Woo, woo.
Yes. Thank you, all of you who are blowing up the chat. We will definitely get to your comments very shortly. But Erica, who is our guest this week?
Our guest is Sarah McDonald. Sarah is a 2-time cancer survivor, and she went through cancer at the same time as her father. She has a very powerful story. She's going to share it with us today. And she's also written a book called The Cancer Channel. So let's welcome Sarah to the show. Lots to talk about.
Definitely.
Hi.
Hello, Sarah, and welcome to the show. Thank you for showing up to the Showing Up show.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well, we're delighted to have you. And we just want to go to the comments briefly to thank everyone who's showing up to support you and who support each other every week here on the show before we get started with the conversation.
That's super cool. You know, I'm not wearing my glasses, so I can see all these comments. I can't read one of them.
That's okay. That's okay. Lance McKinnon is here. He says hello. Lance is
Hi,
going to be
Lance.
at the in-person event here in Pennsylvania in just a few days. So looking forward to seeing you in person in a few days, Lance. Thanks for being here. Shannon is here. She says, good afternoon, supporter tuning in from Maryland.
Hi, Shannon.
Wow.
Monique is here. She says, hi from Houston. I just saw her a few weeks ago at the Hope and Kindness rally that Andrea Sanchez held just a few weeks ago in Houston. So thanks for being here, Monique.
Hi, Monique.
Kara Honorado is here. She was just a guest a few weeks ago here on Showing Up. Thanks for being here. She says, hey, all.
Hi, Kara.
Jennifer is here. She says, hello from Savannah, Georgia. She is a breast cancer survivor.
We love you, Jennifer.
Definitely. Elise Von Stratton is here from South Africa. She says, hello, Tim.
Wow. Hi, Elise.
Mark Kageyama is here. He's an occasional guest host on the show and also a former guest on the show. And he has a YouTube channel where he also has conversations with cancer survivors and supporters and patients. So thanks for being here, Mark. He says, hello, everyone.
And Mark, I love it. You are so engaged in this community. Thank you, Mark.
Definitely. And Tom Tressler is here. He says, hi from Cincinnati, breast cancer survivor, nonprofit executive director.
Yeah. Way to go, Tom. You're like my twin.
And Kara says she's in Savannah, Georgia, and proud mama of an angel cancer warrior and advocate.
Oh, what a beautiful show and a beautiful story and a beautiful family you have, Kara.
And Bill Tomoff is here. He says, happy to join this week. Bill from Crofton, Maryland.
Oh, special how to Bill Tomoff and his family.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Well, thank you everyone for showing up. We really appreciate you all being here for sure. So let's get started with the conversation. So tell us your story, and you definitely have a unique cancer journey as a two-time cancer survivor. So can you take us back to when when were you diagnosed, and tell us your story?
I sure can. So I'll start by saying I'm a 10-year cancer survivor. So all of this took place 10 years ago. I had just gotten married. I like to joke that I'd gotten my personal promotion from my husband. We had just gotten married. We were undergoing fertility treatments because we got married a little later in life and really wanted to have a family together. So I'm undergoing fertility treatments and I get a promotion at work. I'm asked to take on a chief of staff role at eBay, working for the president of eBay, Devin Wenig. And so I found a lump in the floor of my mouth and went to my dentist and I said, you just did a cleaning. I wonder if maybe there's an infection. I don't know. And she said, please come in immediately. And she said, it could be a spectrum of things. Could be anything from an infection and we'll just get you some antibiotics for that. Or on the other end of the spectrum, there's this really, really rare form of cancer, but I'm sure that's not it. And, spoiler alert, that's exactly what it was. So I, went through a whole bunch of tests and biopsies, et cetera, and discovered that I had adenoid cystic carcinoma, which is basically salivary gland cancer. And it's super rare. You've never heard of it, or most people have never heard of it because there are just so few people who are diagnosed with it. So I had received that cancer diagnosis. And while I was speaking with my head and neck surgeon about the treatments, I said to him, 6 years ago, I found a lump in my breast. It's still there. I had a mammogram, a whole bunch of tests, got biopsied and was told that it's not cancer, but is it worth checking out? And so fast forward, it turns out I had been misdiagnosed 6 years earlier. And I, in fact, at that point had stage 3 breast cancer.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That's how I felt too. Oh my God. Like, are you kidding me? Who gets 2 cancers? No one.
No. And are they related?
No, they are unrelated primary source cancers. And that was actually one of the things that the head and neck doctor said to me when I raised the issue of, hey, should we check out this lump again? He said, Sarah, you already have one of the most rare forms of cancer there is. And he said, and when it metastasizes, it likes to go to your lungs or your brain, which, I found really reassuring.
Yeah.
He said, so if you have cancer in your breast, it would be a separate primary source cancer. And frankly, we don't see things like that in someone so young. And but the joke was on them. At 44, I had 2 unrelated cancers. Yeah, ridiculous.
Unbelievable, right? And
it was.
It's sort of like the reverse lottery. Right?
That's right. Lucky me.
Right.
And actually, it was funny because I had just said to all of you I was undergoing fertility treatments at the same time, and every time I would go visit all of them in the fertility clinic, they'd refer to me as like a geriatric mother. So I was really, really old in the fertility world, and then in the cancer world, I was really, really young. So that was also kind of funny to be both at once.
Yeah, both and there. That's such a dichotomy.
Sarah.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Sorry, Erica. Sarah, I was just going to say, I'm curious, since you were misdiagnosed the first time, how much did you trust being diagnosed with breast cancer? Like, did you have any skepticism, or did you get any second opinions or anything like that?
Well, so I was originally at one medical center, and actually I'm realizing that is the name of a medical center. That's not where I was, but I was at a medical center where I received both of these diagnoses, and I determined that I needed to change medical centers. So I went to another one. I got all of my diagnoses confirmed, and then I received treatment from Stanford Medical.
Great.
Okay.
Wow. But yes, there was some distrust, or not so much skepticism, but concern. You're literally putting your life in the hands of people you've just met, and clearly with the first medical center, I discovered doctors are human. They make mistakes. Perhaps that is why they call it practicing medicine. And so I certainly had some concerns, but the doctors I was working with at Stanford were just unbelievable and tremendous. And I feel very grateful that they saved my life.
And what I think is so powerful in this story is that ultimately it was your gut instinct that led you to that breast cancer diagnosis. So
yeah.
In what ways do you have to powerfully advocate for yourself?
Absolutely. That is one of the single largest takeaways from my story is it is a terrific idea to go get a second or third opinion on a diagnosis, even perhaps a misdiagnosis. If you are pretty, I was the one who originally found the lump and went to my OBGYN and said, hey, should we take a look at this? And so, and of course, I wanted so desperately to believe that I didn't have cancer, that when they told me I didn't have cancer, I went about my life very happily thinking, whoo, so glad I didn't get it. But then with the adenoid cystic carcinoma, the salivary gland diagnosis, I thought, wow, I need to listen to that voice inside of me, and I need to go check this out, and I need to question the doctors. And good thing I did. In fact, in many ways, I think of the adenoid cystic carcinoma as having saved my life, because had I not received the salivary gland diagnosis, I don't know when I would have pursued the breast cancer diagnosis. I don't know that I would have thought to.
That's a really, really interesting reframe, right? Where you're grateful for one, because you're right. You could have been in a very different place.
The breast cancer would have continued its march, right? I am lucky that the breast cancer I had was, your garden variety type of breast cancer, and it was slow growing. And so, I'm just so lucky for that. And so the salivary gland cancer, was the trigger for me to go pursue a breast cancer diagnosis. Yeah.
And so let me come back and just ask one follow-up question. So were you being treated for both cancers at the same time?
Yes. So I was treated concurrently because, both sets of doctors were pretty keen to start working on the cancer. And so I had my surgery to my mouth to remove the lump. And then I had started radiation to my mouth, which is the standard protocol for the salivary gland cancer, at the same time that my breast oncologist said, we're going to start chemo for the breast, because the way she described it, we want to erase all the footprints that breast cancer may have made in your body. So I started chemo immediately. So I received chemo and radiation at the same time. And kids, don't try this at home. It was pretty brutal because chemo actually intensifies radiation. And so, it was a 6-week protocol that I was going to undergo for the mouth radiation. And about 2 weeks in, they started to see, the same toxicity they would normally see 6 weeks into radiation. So 2 weeks in, I was starting to have mouth sores. I was having bleeding in my mouth, and it got worse from there.
I know we talked, it does sound like you are a warrior, Sarah.
Well, I don't think of myself so much as a warrior. I think of myself as somebody who had cancer, or who, at the time had cancer, and I just put one foot in front of the other every day. I was just kind of slogging through it.
Impressive.
Yes, yes. So everyone, we are here on Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer. Our guest is Sarah McDonald, and we're talking about her 2-time cancer journey. So Sarah, we talked a bit in terms of your cancer journey from a physical perspective, but how have you managed your mental health, and in what alternate ways have you approached your health?
Right. So it probably wouldn't surprise anyone, especially on this channel, that when I received, both cancer diagnoses, I was freaking out, absolutely freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, what is the next shoe that will drop, right?
Yeah.
And so I found, I call the book The Cancer Channel, because I found that with the cancer diagnosis, I felt like somebody had turned on a 24-hour news station that played all cancer all the time. It was the only thing I could think of. So I was in constant fight or flight. And I went to my breast oncologist and I said, it is very possible that I will die of a heart attack before either of these cancers has a chance to kill me. So I asked her for some anti-anxiety medication. I mean, my mental health was suffering. I was finding it very difficult to sleep and get any sort of rest. And so she prescribed an anti-anxiety medication that I would take every day around 4 o'clock. For some reason, that was the witching hour for me. And it kind of took the edge off. But at the same time, one of my very closest friends was a yoga instructor. And when I was describing all of the Western medicine doctors that I was seeing at Stanford, she said, great, we're going to call that Team 1. I'm going to be in charge of Team 2. And Team 2 is going to be the Eastern practices that we will pursue to try to steady your breathing. And so you can kind of breathe through this experience. So she had me doing meditation, yoga, acupuncture. I did some energy work and guided imagery, all of which I found super, super helpful. And about, I'm going to say 3 to 4 months in to my cancer journey, I relaxed. And I accepted that I had these diagnoses, and I found I didn't need the anti-anxiety medication anymore.
I'm curious, which of those Eastern medicine tools do you think was the most impactful for you?
Guided imagery, which was what I started with, was pretty amazing. What I would do is put in my what were just earbuds at the time, not these fancy earpods, earbuds, and I would listen to a woman with a very soothing voice with beautiful background music, and she would suggest that I would take a walk in a place that I loved, and she took me through these various images, and I found that kind of magically I was able to mourn what was going on in my life. So I would sometimes listen to the guided imagery 2 or 3 times a day, and in the fetal position in my room, kind of mourning what I thought my future would be, and just trying to learn to relax into it. And I probably did that for about 2 months, and that coupled with the meditation and the yoga and the acupuncture and the energy work, again, just really helped me to breathe through the experience.
That's incredible. And I really love that you had team 1 and team 2, or you need both. Yeah.
I absolutely believe that team 1, kind of healed my body, but I think team 2, the Eastern practices, really steadied my soul and healed my brain. And I desperately needed work in both. I found the mental anguish of a cancer diagnosis almost greater than the physical pain I was going through.
Now that is profound. And I absolutely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
It is as much a mental game as it is a physical game.
Absolutely. And as many people I'm sure do, I end up talking to a lot of newly diagnosed people. And this is what I focus on, talking with them. And I don't mean to get, all hippie Northern California, but you need to find ways to relax yourself. And because I do believe that your body needs to accept the medicine, and the more relaxed and accepting of it, I hope and believe that your body has a greater fighting chance.
That is very powerful. Thank you for sharing that. For any of you who have newly diagnosed friends or family, that is wise words to share.
Yeah.
Sarah, so I'm also curious, how did you manage your career? You mentioned earlier you just gotten this major promotion at work. How did you manage your career? And how did you apply some of those work principles to your treatment?
So I was super lucky, and I hate saying that I was lucky in this case, but my company was super supportive. The managers I worked through, both I was the chief of staff to the president, but I talked with both the president about my diagnosis as well as the head of HR. Both immediately said, go home, get healthy, don't come back until you're healthy. And we got you. We got you, Sarah. We don't want you to worry about this. And of course, like many people, I thought, I need my life to be as normal as possible. And I continued to do my email until the head of HR turned my email off. She said, Sarah, this is not the time to be focused on work. This is the time to be focused on healing. And I have to tell you, it was just unbelievable. So I had been at that point an employee of eBay for 8 years, and I would go on to work at eBay another 6 years because I felt so loyal to the company and to the leaders there. So that was tremendous for me. What you asked, what principles from work did I apply to my cancer? And I would tell you, I feel like I have ninja level project management skills, and I had to bring all of those to bear on my cancer journey, just from all of the many doctor's appointments. I think at one point I was meeting with 12 individual doctors. So all the doctor's appointments, the treatments, just keeping everything straight. And then, of course, there was the battle with the insurance company. I lost countless hours of my life arguing that they should reimburse, the hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of medical treatment I was receiving. So I would say project management skills were really, really key. And as I often say to people, who say, oh my God, I don't have those skills, or I'm finding it overwhelming. Many cancer centers have patient advocates who can help you with some of that. And so I encourage people to seek out people who can help you.
Yeah. I love that you were able to, I actually love the story of your HR director turning off your email. It's like the kindest thing she could have done. Right?
Absolutely. And in fact, so kind that she was one of the people I dedicated the book to. She was so unbelievable. And if I can tell you why she was so unbelievable, it wasn't just turning off my my email. Her name is Kristen Yeto. And she, along with my fertility doctor, from the moment I told them that I had been diagnosed, they both started texting me 1 to 2 times a day just to check in on how I was doing. And I was so tremendously grateful for that, because I found my cancer diagnoses to be really isolating. I felt the minute I received the cancer diagnosis that I was suddenly alone on Cancer Island, and not alone on a deserted island in a good way, just very cut off from everyone I knew and loved. In fact, I could see them all on the shore partying and, and living their lives, knowing that they would live forever. Whereas I was on Cancer Island, completely isolated, waiting around to die. That's how I felt. And the texts that I received from Kristen and Ruth were like a lifeline. I felt seen and heard and cared for in a very profound way. And I have taken that now as my approach when I hear that someone has been diagnosed. I try to text, not in a stalking kind of way. I just try to text and check in, and in that way show up for the person who has received the diagnosis.
So powerful. There's so much robustness in that, because your employer was an important part of I'd call them maybe team 3, right? Out of your 3 teams.
They were unbelievable.
And then the small acts of kindness that, a text every once in a while, or a text a day, everybody can do that.
That's right. And I feel that text is intimate without being invasive. Versus, strangely enough, now that we can text one another, we hesitate to call. I don't know, but I find text to be just tremendous. And, when people ask me, what can I do for somebody who's been diagnosed with cancer? I do have a number of suggestions, but the first and most important is just show up for them. Show up. That means you call, you write, you show up on their doorstep, preferably with ice cream. But you just show up, because what the person diagnosed needs to know is, I'm not alone. I have people who care if I live or die, who are around me, supporting me.
Yes.
Wow.
Beautiful
wow.
advice.
Yes. I just want to show some of these comments quickly. All these amazing people showing up are supporting you here in the comments, Sarah. Bill says, employer support is a tremendous gift. My employer gave me incredible support over my 15 years with the organization. Unimaginable gift. There we go. And I already showed that one. I wanted to show another one. Where is it? Oh, mental anguish. I have often talked about the years and years of stress related to my son Ryan's cancer battles. I think, how is my heart supposed to survive this?
Yeah.
Right.
Lance says, I found a wonderful herbalist that helped me with mental health. Yeah, thank you all for showing up. We really appreciate it.
I, by the way, love that the two of you call this showing up, Perspectives on Cancer. I mean, that resonates for me. Just show up. Just show up.
I give all the credit to Tim on this one. I don't know how intentional it was, Tim, but naming the show I agree, is extremely, extremely moving and powerful.
Yeah, it's powerful. Yeah. Language is important.
You bet.
Yeah, I have to give a shout out to my co-creator of the show and original co-host of the show, Kara Ulker. She helped come up with the title of this show. So shout out to her for sure. Yes. So next question. Cancer journeys have highs and lows. You relied on humor at times. Can you tell us one of your funny stories? And then on the flip side, can you tell us one of your lows?
Can I start with the low?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm choosing to start with the low. Yeah. So one of the hardest moments in all of this was about a week after my breast cancer diagnosis. The breast oncologist called me and said, "Can you and your husband, Jeff, come in and see me?" So we both came in, and she walked into the room, and she walked up and put her hands on my knees and was standing very close to me and said, "I know you've been dealing with a lot lately. How you doing?" And I mean, just the physical touch, I jumped. You're just, I was so vulnerable at that moment. And to have her human touch on me was really, to use the word again, powerful. And she said, "I understand that you've been pursuing fertility treatments at Stanford prior to both of your diagnoses. What have you heard about your fertility?" And I said, "Well, if I get through the year, my understanding is I would have to wait 2 years and then we could pursue fertility." And she looked at me and she just shook her head. And she said, "Sarah, when we finish your treatments, I will put you on a medication, a hormone suppressing medication for the next 10 years. So you will be 54 when you finish with that medication. And these hormones are important to a pregnancy. So during that time, you would not be able to pursue a pregnancy. And at 54, likely you would not be a candidate for IVF." And she said, "So you will not be able to carry a child." And what's crazy is, of course, Jeff and I were still kind of reeling from these 2 cancer diagnoses. And it really was a question whether I would live till the end of the year. But we had so much hope kind of pinned on having a child that we hadn't processed the fact that, if I died, I wouldn't be able to have a child. But suddenly having somebody put it in such stark terms that even if I went through all of the treatments, even if I did survive even an unimaginable 10 years out, I would still not be able to have a child. And I looked over at Jeff, and for the first time, he just looked at me and he said, "It's too much. This is just too much." And gosh, even describing it now, I get a little weepy. So that was, probably the lowest moment of the journey for us. And it's funny, I've talked to my breast oncologist about it since, and she's like, "Oh, I remember that conversation." She's like, that is one of the hardest ones I've ever had. So that is the low moment. And the high, the funny moment, one of my favorite things is during this year of cancer for me, my father's prostate cancer returned. It recurred. And at this point, of course, it had metastasized to his bones. So we were dealing with stage 4 prostate cancer for my dad. And when we were, he underwent chemo, we kind of went through it together. He was my cancer twin, which actually in many ways was a really amazing experience for the two of us to have someone so close going through it. Although I never would have wished it on him, but it was wonderful to have somebody you love so much to be able to talk that openly and honestly with him was a tremendous gift. But the funny thing that happened is I have a younger brother and he's bald. He started losing his hair in his early 20s and he shaved his head. Well, my brother and I went down to visit my dad, my mom, and my sister, who all live in the same town. We go down to visit and we're helping to take care of my dad. And I had been undergoing chemo, so I was bald.
Oh
and my dad, his cancer had progressed to his brain at this point, and he kept confusing my brother and me. So he was regularly calling me David and calling him Sarah, and we would correct him, and then he would just kind of chuckle to himself. And that is my favorite way to remember my dad now. Just like laughing at the mistake he was making because he couldn't tell the two of us apart.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That is hilarious. Actually, one of my good friends, he always says, comedy is tragedy plus time. Right? Like,
yes. So true. And I do think, I'm now 10 years out. A lot of the things seem funnier now. Like the time they put a needle into my nipple in order to put radioactive material into it. Things like that are funny now. That's funny.
Right. Exactly. I totally get that. But I've also heard that called type 2 fun, right? It's never funny in the moment, but it's funny later on. Yeah.
Right. I always try to think to myself, if something bad is happening, like there's got to be a good story in this later.
Oh yeah. Yep. Oh my gosh. Sarah, what landed for me was earlier when you talked about Cancer Island, right?
Yes.
Because I do believe that a diagnosis in the first, sort of month, 2 months, 3 months is so isolating. So tell me about that, a little bit more about that isolation of cancer. Because even though when you're surrounded by, what you said at one point, you're seeing 12 doctors a day and yet you still feel incredibly lonely and you see people on the other side of the island. And what ways you started a blog, I've heard. Did that bring people closer to you on that island?
Yeah. Well, what I found is once I started, I initially was trying to tell every person in person. Like I wanted to be sitting in front of the person when I told them that they had cancer. And about 2 weeks into this this experience, I had dinner with a friend. And he actually said to me, "Wait, you're not doing all of this in person. Oh God, what are you thinking? You're going to exhaust yourself." And he was right. He said, "Have you heard of a website called caringbridge.org?" And of course, I hadn't at this point. So he said, what you can do is you can write a blog on CaringBridge, and your friends and family can sign up to get alerts. And every time there is something new, they'll be messaged that there's a new blog and they can keep up to speed on everything going on with you. And oh my goodness, did that make life easier? I didn't have to keep track of who I was telling what, and I just updated everyone all at the same time. So I didn't have to keep repeating stories, which you can also imagine when I was going through all of the mouth pain. I got to a point where I didn't want to do any talking because it was too painful. And so the blog was a lifesaver. And I really enjoyed writing the blog. I tried to keep it newsy and kind of funny. Like I'm a business person, so I created metrics for my cancer treatments. And every week I would give people updates on whether I was meeting or exceeding my metrics. And in fact, at the end of my cancer journey, I declared in a public blog that I thought I had exceeded all of my metrics and therefore should win a President's Club trip to Mexico. And so I called that out to my husband, and I got a President's Club trip to Punta, Mexico, and it was amazing.
Yeah, you did.
But I just tried to make it newsy and funny for people so that they would want to come back and read the blog. And in my book, I include all of the blogs. My book actually became like me going into greater detail about what was going on. And when my husband was reading the book for the first time, just when I was about to publish it, I didn't actually have Jeff read it until very close to publishing. He said, you need to insert an author's note into the book that explains that the blogs are, newsy and funny, and that when you go into detail, you're going to be more honest and authentic about some of the the lows and how tough that was, some of the terror associated with a cancer diagnosis. He's like, otherwise people are going to end up with whiplash. And I thought it was a really good, it was a good addition to the book.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. We'll talk about the book next. Yeah. In a little bit. So Tim, over to you.
Yes, thanks, Erica. So, Sarah, what impacts have your cancer journey had on your family and your daughter? And also, what about your dad's cancer?
Yeah. Well, when I was going through cancer, my daughter didn't exist.
I know. I was like, wait a minute. I think you're going to have to back us up on that. How did that come to be?
Yeah. So I was going to say, so my cancer really impacted my daughter a lot in that had I not stuck around, she wouldn't be here. But
Right.
about 2 years after all of my cancer treatments, I was feeling more optimistic that I would live. And so my husband and we had a whole bunch of embryos from our fertility treatments previously. And I like to say, like, those embryos were kind of burning a hole in my uterus. And I had been told I couldn't carry the child. So we started to look into surrogacy. And at my 2-year cancer appointment, 2-year anniversary appointment, I shared with my breast oncologist that we were investigating surrogacy. And she said, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you bring this up. There has just been a major study in Europe that tracked Belgian and German women who have had breast cancer, who willfully took themselves off their medications against doctors' wishes, got pregnant, had children, went back on their medication, and haven't shown higher incidence of recurrence. And I was like, so what does that mean? Yeah. And she said, if you want to try having a baby, I would support that. Wow. And so I went home and I said, guess what? We can have a baby. And my husband said, wait, why would you want to take yourself off your medication? And I was like, because I've always wanted to have a child. And, I carry a child. And Jeff said, well, I want to guarantee that your cancer won't come back. And I was like, sweetheart, we never have that guarantee, ever. And so instead, we should look at the time we have and determine what do we want to do with that time. And with that time, I want to carry a baby. So we made that decision, and I took myself off the medication. And I was super lucky in that I got pregnant with our first try at IVF. And I had a little baby girl at age 48. So I got pregnant at 47 and I had the baby at 48. And she is now 6.5.
Oh my God. This is the best story I've heard all week.
Thank you. So I call it, the title of the book is The Cancer Channel. And the subtitle is 1 year, 2 cancers, 3 miracles. And so, I had 1 year of treatment. You've heard of the 2 cancers now. And the 3 miracles are, I'm now no evidence of disease for the salivary gland cancer, no evidence of disease for the breast cancer. And I had a little baby.
Oh my God. Okay, community, you've got to celebrate Sarah with that. That's dang, that's amazing.
Yeah, well, again, I feel super, super grateful. I am so lucky to have had all the doctors who have helped me. None of this would have been possible without a whole lot of medicine, a whole lot of science.
Yeah. So yes, Tim, back to your question, because I was dying to hear how that came out. Thank you for sharing that, Sarah.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, the question, I think she answered the question. I said, what impacts did this daughter have on your family and daughter, and what about your dad's cancer? I guess you didn't talk about that.
So I guess I didn't answer. I was on the high of the miracles.
Yeah. I was too. I was like hanging on your every word.
Thank you. The low though is whereas my cancer treatments were successful, my father's were not, and my father died in October of 2012 while I was still battling cancer.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
So he didn't get to meet my little girl, which is also sad.
Yeah. I'm glad you shared that story with us, though.
Yeah.
Because it's always good to remember the fun parts, too.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, tell us more about your book, because it sounds like a page turner with that kind of tagline. So tell us more. What inspired you to write it?
So it actually started out as a guidebook for the newly diagnosed. So while I was going through cancer treatments, what I discovered, my experience was, I was reading a whole bunch of books by doctors that were explaining to me why cancer happened and what treatments were available. But what I couldn't find is a book that described the lived experience of going through cancer treatments and kind of the freaking out part, the mental health issues. I didn't find a book like that. So what I did is I started writing a guidebook for the newly diagnosed, and I started shopping it around to publishers. And I don't really, I like talk to 5 people, that's it. But to a person, they said, no one is going to buy a guidebook from a patient. Guidebooks need to be written by experts, doctors. And I said, well, I disagree with you respectfully.
Yeah.
But I said, so what's your recommendation? And to a person, they said, your voice is funny. You should, not my speaking voice, but my writing voice. You should write a memoir that, only you can tell your story. And so I said, all right, well, writing a memoir seems kind of arrogant and self-absorbed, but if it can be helpful for people, then I would like to do it, because I do feel like it's a story of hope. And I do try to be super honest about the highs and the lows. I try to laugh where it is possible to laugh, and I try to be very honest and vulnerable about the difficulties. And so it took me 10 years to write this memoir. I think that I have struck the balance. The feedback that I have been receiving from people since it launched has been tremendous. And Erica, what the most common text or phone call or email that I'm receiving is, Sarah, I was up until 2 a.m. reading your book, and I loved it. So they're like, it's a page turner. And so I love hearing that. That's tremendous. I'm glad
amazing.
People are enjoying reading it. That is the goal. The goal is for a book for cancer patients, people who have cancer, so that they read the stories, have some hope. Maybe the stories resonate with them and they feel a little less alone. I hope for that. And then more broadly, actually, so much of the feedback I'm getting is from friends and family, people who know someone who has cancer, and they say, oh my God, I had no idea my loved one is going through this. And I want to show up differently now. And oh my goodness, this that means so much to me to hear that. Yeah. So may have taken me 10 years, but all of it is worth it to be receiving this kind of feedback.
Yeah. What a gift. And yeah, if every time you get that message, you've made an impact on someone's life. That's
on
awesome.
someone's life. It is tremendous. So I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled.
Yeah. I'm imagining it like you're visiting other people's islands, right? Because
I love that visual. I love that. Thank you, Erica.
Yeah, that was literally the image.
I hope, it's like hopefully I am a lifeline to someone's cancer island. Hopefully the book is. That would be so tremendous.
Yeah. Awesome.
Sarah, what was it like for you writing the book? I'm curious.
Writing is hard. It turns out it's hard. I was saying to somebody, it's like doing a 10,000 piece puzzle. And like, just when you get the frame, you realize, oh my God, there's no picture. and it's all blue sky. You know? So
Oh, yes.
it's hard. And I mean, and I knew the story, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the story, but it's a question of like, how do you tell it? And I was really lucky. I actually, over the course of 10 years, had 3 different editors. The first editor was just a girlfriend from college who had gotten her English Lit degree while I got mine. And she said, I've always wanted to be an editor. Could I be your editor? And I said, yeah. And then, and you can't make this up, 8 years in, her husband was diagnosed with ALS.
Oh.
And so she had a little less time to be editing. What was fascinating, though, is the 2 of them both, you know, she said, we read your book and it applies to us, you know, and the crisis we're going through. So that was wild. I brought in when Catherine is her name, when Catherine, you know, stopped editing in order to take care of her husband, Jimmy, somebody that I worked with at the last startup where I worked, a guy named Shane. Shane came in and helped me edit for a while. And then when I was kind of 3 months prior to publication, I hired an editor, woman named Nanette. And Nanette didn't know me like Shane and Catherine did. So maybe she could be a little bit more honest with me. And, you know, she helped me take things out of the book and add some important parts in. And I am so grateful to her. And now it's gotten to the point where, you know, I am proud of the book. It's not perfect, but I kept reminding myself, perfect is the enemy of good enough. Perfect is the enemy of published.
Yeah.
So
perfect is the enemy of everything.
Right. So just at some point, I just needed to send, you know, to hit send on publish, and that's what we did. But it took a long time.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so thrilled it is out in the wild now. I'm thrilled.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, definitely. So everyone, we are here on Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer with Sarah McDonald. So Sarah, what is the silver lining in your cancer journey?
You know, I do believe in all bad experiences, there is some good that comes out of it. And I think in skating so close to death, I think I have more perspective on living. Prior to my cancer diagnosis, I mean, I've always been an extrovert and have been very blessed with a ton of friends. But I'm also a very driven person. And, you know, at work, I had a very high bar for myself. And so I would sometimes put work first. And that doesn't happen anymore. I always put people and my relationships and my experiences first. And in some ways, that's probably made me a better employee or a better worker because I have more perspective now. I worry less about time, which of course drives my husband a little crazy. But you know, I'm going to get there when I get there, and I'm not going to worry about. I'm not going to let myself get stressed out about being somewhere. And you know, writing this book has been such a tremendous gift for me, and hopefully for other people. But I don't know that I would have written a book. I don't know that I would be live streaming right now if I hadn't done that. And I'm so glad to add my voice. I am very grateful to be able to add my voice. And so that was a big silver lining for me.
Those are real life lessons. And I have to tell you, I'm taking away some personal lessons on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, we always ask this at the end of our show here. What is your one word perspective on cancer?
You know, probably the word that describes my relationship to my cancer at this point is peaceful.
Mm.
And that's not the same thing as like resigned. Just peaceful, that I understand it's something I need to monitor and fight for the rest of my life, but I'm at peace about it.
Mm. That is so powerful, and that is probably down to your team 2 healing.
Yeah. Which, I also need to continue to do, right? I try to have a daily meditation practice. I recently broke my wrist though, so I haven't been doing a lot of yoga. And I broke the wrist on a silent meditation retreat. So,
That's
yeah,
ironic.
isn't that funny? Yeah,
Yeah.
I was doing my walking meditation and I managed to, coming down a hill, I was hiking in the hills and managed to slip on some leaves and I heard a pop and I thought, that can't be good. I am sure I broke my silence in that moment. Pretty sure I broke my silence.
Yep. As you would be expected to. Oh my gosh. Tim, what is your word? Are you changing your word, keeping your word? What's your word this week?
Oh gosh, this has been such a great conversation that I have not been thinking about the word at all because I've been so focused on the conversation. But I'm gonna go with inspirational, just because this conversation has been so inspirational today.
Mm-hmm.
Just thanks for being here and showing up, and this has been a wonderful conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I have so enjoyed talking to the two of you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think my word this week might be, maybe it's unconventional, holistic. Only, and I say that because I just have really, it landed for me when you talked about some of your alternative Eastern medicine, team 2, whatever you want to call it. I really do believe, I think in any health journey, you need both. And so holistic might be my word for this week. Yeah.
I love it.
Awesome.
I love it. I hear that coming up more and more in conversations on this show about, chemotherapy and radiation, but then also people exploring other alternative options as well, in addition to.
Yeah.
Healing the whole person. The whole person.
Exactly.
Totally. Yeah. And so thank you for being vulnerable, Sarah, in this conversation, sharing everything. I think I was even almost more moved by your fertility story and the perseverance and resilience within that, within a cancer journey. I hate to break it to you, Sarah, but you become the warrior. I know you said you didn't want to identify with that word, but
I just don't use that word, but I am someone who can learn. So thank you. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Tim.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sarah. We so appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you, Sarah.
Oh. Erica.
Tim, those were some goosebump worthy moments, conversations. I'll be honest, I lost track of the list of questions because I was so engaged. Yeah.
Me too. Those are the best conversations when you just, you just want to have, we do have authentic conversations every week.
Yep.
But when you just get caught up in the conversation, and it's just like you're having a conversation over coffee with somebody, and that's what you want to do. That's what we want to do here.
And I want to actually thank this community. There were so many thoughtful comments and just really energized me to see such engagement. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to bring up this comment by Bill. He says, Sarah, your story and everyone's is so valuable and important. Thank you for bringing your experience to others for hope and inspiration. You never know who will be reached. So thank you, Bill.
Wise words, Bill, my friend.
Yes, definitely. And there we go. Okay. So we are always looking for guests who want to be on the show. So if you do want to be on the show, you have a connection to cancer, just send me a direct message. Let's talk. We'll get you on the show. We'd love to have you share your story here on Showing Up. Also, a quick reminder that coming up in just a few days on November 5th here in Pennsylvania, not that far away from where I am, is the in-person Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer event. You could go to perspectivesoncancer.com, sign up for free. And yeah, also a quick reminder, in December, we will not be showing up for showing up because we're taking a self-care month. That's happening. I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Yes. Erica, who is our guest coming up actually here in Pennsylvania on Saturday? There's going to be a special show.
Yes, in person, the 52nd Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer show. And our guest will be Savio Clemente. His connection to cancer is that he is a survivor of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he is a certified wellness coach. It's going to be an awesome conversation. And in person, whoop, whoop. That's going to be cool. And then coming back live next Tuesday, we will have our 53rd show, and that will be with Joe Tower. He is a 24/7 caregiver to his cancer warrior wife, Anna. So let's all show up for Savio and for Joe next week, and for Anna and for each other. I love this community. Thank you so much.
Yes, I do too. Thank you all for showing up this week and every week on Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer. And now, you know what time it is. You know what time it is, Erica Campbell?
It's my favorite time. It's time to dance.
It's time
Everybody
to dance.
get off your chairs and let's dance to the best music.
Let's go. Here we go.